Every country owes someone, but what if I told you that debt isn't the problem? The real danger is who controls it, why it's created, and how it's weaponized against the people. 1. What is national debt? National debt, alternatively known as public debt, government debt, or sovereign debt, refers to the total monetary obligations owed by a federal or central government. Analogous to individual borrowing, governments incur debt when expenditures surpass revenues. However, unlike private borrowers who rely on commercial banks, governments obtain funding from a multitude of lenders, including foreign states, private institutions, and their own citizens through the issuance of bonds and securities. It is crucial to differentiate national debt from regional or local obligations. For instance, the U.S. national debt encompasses federal liabilities only, excluding debts incurred by states such as California or Texas. Likewise, national debt must not be conflated with consumer debt, such as mortgages or credit card liabilities. Footnote: this section establishes the technical definition and scope of national debt in contrast to local and private debts. 2. Why do countries borrow money? Governments cannot indiscriminately print currency to meet fiscal needs without severe economic repercussions. Printing excess money devalues currency, spurs hyperinflation, and erodes public and investor confidence, as witnessed in Venezuela and Zimbabwe. Borrowing, on the other hand, imposes fiscal discipline due to the obligation of interest payments. The primary motivations for sovereign borrowing include: 1. Budget deficits, where tax revenues fall short of funding public services. 2. Investment in infrastructure to accelerate economic development. 3. Crisis response, particularly during wars or pandemics. 4. Refinancing existing debt to avoid default. And 5. Macroeconomic management, including interest rate and inflation regulation through monetary tools like bond issuance. Footnote: this section outlines the economic rationale and strategic benefits of national borrowing, including fiscal discipline and emergency response. 3. Who lends money to countries? National governments source loans from 3 principal categories. 1. Domestic lenders, such as individual citizens and institutions purchasing bonds. 2. Foreign lenders, including governments and international investors acquiring sovereign bonds. And 3. Central banks, which may engage in debt monetization. Citizens invest in government bonds for stable returns, while governmental agencies contribute through intragovernmental holdings, as seen in the U.S. Social Security Trust Fund. Foreign states like China and Japan hold substantial U.S. debt due to confidence in its repayment capacity. Multilateral lenders like the World Bank fund development projects, while the IMF provides conditional emergency loans. Direct borrowing from central banks is limited due to inflationary risks and is primarily used to regulate economic activity via bond markets. Footnote: this section dissects the key sources of sovereign debt, from domestic bondholders to international financial institutions. 4. Is national debt a bad thing? National debt is not inherently detrimental. When used prudently, it can drive growth and provide stability during economic shocks. Constructive borrowing finances infrastructure, healthcare, and education, enhancing productivity and revenue over time. However, persistent deficits and reliance on borrowing for recurrent expenditures can lead to a debt trap. Rising debt service obligations may divert funds from essential services. Investor skepticism can trigger credit downgrades, raise interest rates, and culminate in default scenarios, exemplified by Sri Lanka in 2022. Economists assess debt sustainability via the debt-to-GDP ratio. Although thresholds vary, ratios exceeding 60% may prompt concern. In the U.S., the statutory debt ceiling theoretically restricts borrowing, but is routinely raised, undermining its efficacy. Footnote: this section evaluates when national debt is beneficial and when it becomes a liability based on management and economic indicators. 5. Can a country be debt-free? While theoretically possible, complete sovereign debt elimination is uncommon and economically unadvisable. All recognized nations maintain some level of debt to support fiscal operations and stabilize capital markets. Even Macau, often cited as debt-free, is not a sovereign state but a Chinese administrative region with a small population and a casino-driven economy. Total debt elimination would necessitate severe austerity or tax hikes, likely impairing growth and triggering unrest. Furthermore, government bonds serve as essential low-risk assets for pension funds and institutional investors. Their absence could destabilize financial markets and compromise retirement security. Footnote: this section explains why debt-free nations are rare and outlines the economic risks of eliminating sovereign debt altogether. 6. Conclusion. National debt functions as a double-edged sword, empowering when responsibly managed, destructive when mishandled. Borrowing can catalyze growth, maintain stability during crises, and fund long-term investments. However, unsustainable debt accumulation erodes investor trust, burdens future budgets, and may precipitate economic collapse. The critical issue is not the presence of debt, but the capacity to manage it strategically. Future inquiries might explore why certain nations endure high debt with minimal disruption, while others spiral into fiscal turmoil, an investigation suited for subsequent analyses. Footnote: this section synthesizes the core arguments and reinforces that effective debt management, not the absence of debt, is the hallmark of sound fiscal governance.